What's up guys, I'm Paul's Demise, and today I thought I would do a tier list of every roller coaster in Virginia that is not defunct. Alright, so I'm just gonna jump straight into this. First coaster, well, Anaconda. It has its own tier at the very bottom just because it's the worst coaster in Virginia. I don't really care what other people have to say. I absolutely hate this ride. Alright, next is Reptilian, and I've actually ridden this like 3 times. It's a really fun ride. The only issue it has, it's a little short, but I'm gonna put it in good just because it's a unique ride and you can ride it with your whole family. I love it. It's a great ride. Next is Flight of Fear. I have not ridden this. When we were going to ride it, it had a stupid long wait time and we didn't want to wait for it, so I'm gonna assume it's probably mid or good. I'm gonna put it at the top of mid because I don't really hear too much about it, but I have never really heard that it's a bad ride either. Alright, next up we have Dominator, the B&M looping floorless coaster. It's actually a really good ride. It's one of my favorite at King's Dominion, and it's like a top 3 B&M in Virginia, so for that I'm gonna put it in great. I don't think it's elite, not at all, but it's a very solid floorless coaster. Alright, next up we have the original B&M Hyper, Apollo's Chariot, and this is still a good ride. I think it gets a lot of hate, which I can see why. The airtime is pretty gentle, but if you just like let yourself fly on this ride and you just like, I don't know, stick your arms in the air, stick your legs out, it's a really fun ride. And I'm gonna put it at the top of good just because I don't think it's quite up here with Dominator, but still a very good ride. I ride it every time I go to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. Alright, next up is Apple's Apple, which I've not ridden, but I'm gonna assume since it's a wild mouse it's probably pretty bad. Don't hate me for that because I haven't ridden it, but it's a wild mouse. What can you really expect? Alright, next is Alpengeist, which is definitely one of, if not the best B&M in Virginia. Super intense ride. It's not really too rough, which I like. It's absolutely massive. The inversions are huge. Yeah, it's a really good ride. This is probably top 3 at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Now, I'm not sure that it's elite, but I'm just gonna put it in great above Dominator because I do think it's better, but I don't know by how much. Alright, next up is Griffon, which, hot take, is better than Alpengeist. I know I just said this is probably better than, like, it's the best B&M in Virginia, but Griffon is a really good ride. Dive coasters get a lot of hate, but in my personal opinion, they're like one of the best ride models. Simply because, yeah, while they're a one-trick pony, it's a really cool trick that the pony does, and the views from up on the top of Griffon are great. It has a nice color scheme, and it just gives off really good vibes. I really like the elements are fun. I mean, what is there to hate about Griffon? Next up, we have Intimidator 305. This is, without a doubt, top 3 in Virginia, and in my personal opinion, this is elite. I don't think it's quite world class just because it's lacking a lot in the airtime department, but it is a very good ride still. It's easily probably the best at King's Dominion, either that or a ride that'll come up soon, but Intimidator 305 is definitely a very good ride. Next up we have Woodstock Express. This is an interesting one because not only have I not ridden it, but it's a family ride, so I don't think it's going to be as bad as the Wild Mouse, but it's not going to be up here, so I'm going to put it at the top of the bad tier because I do think it's better than the Wild Mouse, but it's a family ride with mild airtime. Next up we have Pantheon, which I think is also going to go in the elite tier above I-305. Do not kill me, but I think Pantheon is a much better ride than Intimidator 305, not only because it's much more unique, but it's also smoother, and I personally love launches, so I think I'm gonna put it over I-305. I'm not too sure. I might change that, but because these things always go back and forth in my rankings, But I think this is like my general consensus is that I like Pantheon more, and it's the best coaster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg by far. All right, next up we have Grover's Alpine Express, which, you know, for a family ride isn't bad, but comparing it to all these other rides in the same kind of like category, I'm just gonna put it at the bottom of bad. It's a family ride. I mean, it's good for little kids, and it does like 2 helixes. It's not really very special. Next we have Tumbili, which if you watch my last video, which you definitely should, I talked about how the free spin is one of the most underrated coaster models, and I really like them. I'm gonna put this in the good tier behind not Anaconda, behind Reptilian and Apollo's Chariot, because I actually really like these rides. The only issue is that it's a little short, so it might get moved down to the top of mid. All right, next up we have the new for 2023 Dark Coaster. This ride opened up like just shy of a year ago, I think, and it's a very good ride. I've ridden it like 4 or 5 times, and all of those rides are super enjoyable. It's not a perfect ride, it's a little short, and its family element does kind of take from the ride experience, but for what it is, I think it has all right theming. I don't think it's as good as Verbolten, but overall it's definitely not a bad ride, and I'm probably gonna put it above Tumbili. Yeah, that sounds like a good spot. All right, I'm gonna make a little adjustment here. I think I might have put this a little too high, so I think I want to swap these around just like that. All right, next up we have Grizzly, which just got a retracking like a year ago or so, and I haven't ridden it.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, man. What the fuck, man? I just keep going.
But I've heard it's pretty mid. It's not really bad, but it's not necessarily good either, so it's just an old wooden coaster. Next up we have a not so old wooden coaster, Invader. It opened like, what, 7 years ago now. Actually a pretty solid little family ride. It has some good airtime pops. It's quite short, which is a little bit bad, but I mean, it's a family ride. It's like a minute long, so you can't be too mad about that. But I think I'm gonna put it again in the mid tier. It's not as bad as Grizzly, what I've heard, but I don't know. This is kind of just a tier full of rides I haven't ridden. Next up we have one that I have ridden, Backlot Stunt Coaster, which was, I actually had decent expectations for this ride and none of them were met. This ride is not good. It's rough and it really hurts, so I'm gonna put it in the bad tier because I did not enjoy my experience on Backlot Stunt Coaster. None of the effects were working and we waited like half an hour for it, and I was very disappointed. Next up we have a super somehow underrated ride, which is Loch Ness Monster, which actually closed like 6 or 7 months ago for a refurbishment, and it's opening again next month. This ride was actually really good. If you got a good ride on Loch Ness Monster, it could be up like in these 2 categories, but sadly a lot of the rides weren't super great. A lot of times it was, for some reason, felt really rougher than others, but because I still enjoy the ride, and I think its interlocking loops are awesome, the theme is pretty cool, I'm gonna put it at the bottom of good, above Tumbili. Next up I have Racer 75. This was the first like coaster outside of my home park that I ever rode, and let me tell you, it's a very good wooden coaster. I think it's the best wooden coaster in Virginia. It has some nice airtime pops, and it's especially cool when it actually races. I sadly didn't get to experience the racing, but overall I think I'm gonna put this right a little bit above Invader, just because I think they're pretty close, but Racer takes the lead. Coming down to the final 3 rides, we have Tempesto, which I think gets a little bit too much hate, but I still don't really like this ride. The restraints are super duper uncomfortable, and I'm not the biggest fan of hang time, so honestly, since it's a clone, there's not really too much to say about it. I think I'm gonna put this ride right above Invader and below Racer. Tempesto is, well, it's a skyrocket too, so they're pretty Like, they have mixed reviews, and me personally, I don't really like these rides. Alright, right here we have Twisted Timbers, which in my opinion is the king of Virginia. It still manages to be a top 5 coaster after everything I've ridden. Twisted Timbers is a really good ride. It's a perfect length. It has nice inversions, tons of airtime, almost too much for some people. But for me personally, I absolutely love airtime. So in my opinion, this ride is either the very top of elite or world class. I can't decide. I think I'm gonna go to the very top of elite. But yeah, these 3 coasters right here are like easily the top 3 in Virginia, no debate. You could ask anyone and they would all say these are the 3 best. Twisted Timbers is a super good ride. And here we have a very unique ride. We have Verbolten. Verbolten is really good, honestly. It's probably top 5 at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. I'm not too sure. I'm gonna have to place it and then see how that goes, but Verbolten is really nice. It has a really cool theme. I love the spoilers ahead. The drop track, it's super duper awesome. It's the only one I've ever done, so I mean, I don't know if there's any better ones, but it's a very nice ride. And Zero, they don't really do too many coasters, but I feel like when they do them, they're actually really good. Like, there's Wicked at Lagoon and Verbolten. Those are the only 2 I can think of, but those are both very like highly received rides. So I think I'm gonna put Verbolten at the top of the good tier, or maybe I think I want to put it above Alpengeist. That's a pretty hot take probably, but I really like this ride. All right, that is it for my Virginia roller coaster tier list. I think this is a solid list. There are probably a few things I would change if you gave me the chance, but I'm not gonna spend like 2 hours making this list absolutely perfect because I don't have the time for that. But what do you guys think of this list, or how would you rank the coasters of Virginia? Because me personally, I think, well, these are obviously the best, and Anaconda is the worst ride in Virginia and the second worst ride I've ever been on. Anyways, make sure to like and subscribe for more coaster content every week. And with that being said, I'm Paul's Demise. Peace.